Hey there, welcome back to another video this time around. It is my review of the 2023 science fiction thriller 65. Now, 65 is one of those films that really surprised me when I came across it when it comes to the trailer for the film, because I heard nothing about it until the trailer dropped. And I liked what I saw. I thought it had potential. Could be a fun creature feature. A film that takes place 65 million years ago in the age of the dinosaurs. And there is a plot involving people who have to survive in the realm of the past and are able to use futuristic technology at their disposal to fight these dinosaurs, and so you have a melding of the past and the future, and I like it when films do that. I like that concept, and I thought it showed some real potential, and that's why I saw it in the theater. But I'm glad that I only paid 50 cents for a ticket because I have Regal Unlimited, because otherwise I would feel ripped off. Because at best, this film is just there. It's so, it's okay. I totally understand why it got a lot of middling or not the best reviews from critics, because it's one of those films where it does have an interesting concept. There are some sequences where there is some genuine tension or suspense involving the dinosaurs. And there are other elements of the script and of the film that are worthwhile. And I do appreciate the fact that it's an original film that takes place in its own universe. It's not some kind of sequel or remake or reboot. I will take this any day of the week, despite how mediocre it is, over another Jurassic World movie. This is better than Dominion, but I mean that's not saying much because Dominion was so below average. But still, yes, it was better than Dominion, and it was better than Jurassic World in my opinion, and a lot of other dinosaur films that I've seen uh, in a while. But it's just missing a lot of factors and a lot of elements that just would make it so much better. And it does feel like it just settles. It settles for mediocrity when it could strive for a lot more than that. The film is directed by the duo of Scott Beck and Bryan Woods, who prior to this they wrote A Quiet Place. They also wrote a film called Nightlight, which I saw, and that film sucked ass. But yeah, that was one of their first few films that they worked on, so I'm not really gonna, hold them to that harshly. But yeah, after they did that, they wrote A Quiet Place, and then they did Haunt, which I still haven't seen, but I've heard some good things about it. And I know that the duo is also writing the Boogeyman movie, which is going to be coming out sometime this year. But this script is definitely not as good as the script for A Quiet Place, but I'm going to talk about that when I get to the screenplay. Talk about the script. I think this is their directorial. Okay, they directed Nightlight. Yeah, they didn't do a very good job directing that, to be honest. That was the last. But Haunt, I've heard a lot of good things about, and I do have that on Blu-ray, but I still haven't seen it yet, so I'll have to check that out sometime. But compared to their direction in Nightlight, it's definitely a massive improvement. The direction it's good. I don't think it's great. I do think there are some moments where it's not as interesting when it comes to the camera work, when it comes to the movement of the camera or the placement of the camera or the different kinds of shots that are used. Um, there are a lot of moments where it almost feels like it's a streaming series, in that kind of way. When it comes to the way that the film is shot, it almost feels like you could see this being like a multiple episode season of some new show on Netflix, that kind of thing. I definitely don't feel that it has this epic scope to it, which I think probably would have benefited the film a little bit, like especially if these sequences and these moments that take place on Earth 65 million years ago had more weight to them. There's a lot of shots in this film that don't really get the most out of the setting. It definitely does seem like they were working with a pretty limited budget. So that's why there's a lot of sequences in this film that are just in a cave somewhere. Um, and some of the action sequences are kind of shot in a way that's a little clunky, doesn't really provide maximum thrills or excitement. And the crash landing sequence in particular, I thought was shot in a very weird way, like too many close ups or just not really the most effective way to shoot it. I think there was too much shaky cam as well. But I mean, the direction, it's fine. It's not what I would consider to be amazing or anything, but it's good enough. I think the limitations of this film are more tied into the screenplay by Scott Beck and Bryan Woods or the film's lead actor than really the direction. And speaking of the script, I like the concept of a film that takes place on Earth 65 million years ago, and you have these humans who are trying to survive. And I do like the fact that the actual film, spoiler for those of you who haven't seen it yet, and by the way, a lot of my reviews are going to have spoilers in them. That's just how I roll. And that's how I'm able to really talk about something as in depth as I possibly can. So, just giving you a bit of a warning for those of you who might be new to this channel. But yeah, I do really like the fact that it's not a time travel movie, that it just takes place 65 million years ago, and the humans that are on Earth are humanoids from another planet. The fact that they speak English is kind of a stretch, but okay, all right, you're trying, you're doing something a little different. You're not, doing the same old thing. And it also makes it so you don't have to deal with the rules of time travel and all of that and deal with how they wound up traveling through time, like traveling through a black hole that was just conveniently there or something like that. So, there it's a nice workaround when it comes to some issues that you might have with time travel. And it's not something you see a lot of where, okay, this just takes place around the same time as the dinosaur age, the Cretaceous period, 65 million years ago on Earth. And you have these other humans that travel and wind up crashing on Earth 65 million years ago. And it becomes a game of survival between Mills and this young girl named Koa. And I do like the dynamic that develops between Mills and Koa. I think it's sweet. I think you really do buy that the two wind up caring for one another, and Mills starts to have some genuine compassion for Koa and actually genuinely starts to see her as potentially another daughter. So that leads to him being even more protective of her and wanting to do what he can to keep her safe and to get her and himself off this planet. And I like the fact that there is a ticking time bomb in the form of the asteroid that hit the Earth 65 million years ago and killed the dinosaurs. I like that. I think it adds some extra tension to the script. I do feel it should have been introduced earlier. That is one of a few issues that I do have with this script. They don't introduce that until pretty later on. Like, you just see an asteroid field, and that's what causes the ship to crash because Mills is a pilot for a transport vessel that transports people from one place to the next and winds up in an asteroid belt and crashes, gets messed up, and then crashes on Earth 65 million years ago. And he and Koa are the only survivors. And one part of the ship crash lands near this like marsh, and then another part of it crash lands on a mountain, and Koa and Mills have to get to the mountain because that's where the escape pod is, the escape ship, and they have to get there, and and it's a race against time. They have to get to that mountain, and they have to escape before the asteroid hits. But the asteroid isn't introduced until way later in the film, so you don't have that extra bit of tension that I think really would have helped the pacing of the film, would have helped certain scenes not feel so slow or feel like they didn't have a lot of weight to them. Um, it really would have helped things not feel like they're just going through the motions as much. And there is a large chunk of this film that's devoted to Mills's daughter, Alia, I think. And you have a scene that opens the film with him and his daughter and his wife on the beach. And it's a moment that's supposed to be heartfelt. And you're thinking, okay, this is a part of the same timeline. And the twist is that she didn't make it. She's been dead the entire time that Mills is trapped on this uh um hellhole of Earth 65 million years ago. And Koa then becomes, in a way, sort of a replacement for the daughter that he lost. But I don't know. That was kind of clunky too. Just the way that was set up in the script. The fact that, oh, they set it up for a twist that she's dead is just kind of like, okay, did we really need that? Was that really necessary? Maybe, I don't mind Koa, but honestly, it might have been even more effective if it was actually his daughter that was on the vessel somehow. Like, she snuck on, and then the ship crash landed, and then he sees her signature on a piece of tech, and then is like, oh, what? And then he has to go rescue her from a dinosaur, and then you just that would be even more personal. And I see what they're trying to do with Koa, but I do feel, the father and daughter dynamic, if it actually is his daughter, that would be a little bit more effective than what's going on with Koa, because you have to have the whole moment where Koa is starting to get to know Mills, and they have this antagonistic back and forth initially, which I didn't really buy. And there's a lot of moments with Koa and Mills where they're trying too hard to be cute with the two, and some comic relief moments that I just felt were awkward. And you wouldn't really have a lot of that if it was just Mills and his daughter, Alia. But that's just me personally. And there's a lot of just awkward stuff, like awkward humor. the like awkward moments where things are just kind of not necessarily going in a way that is really that captivating or compelling. It just feels like it's just blasé or the same old. There's a lot of predictable stuff too in this where they show a scene where Mills almost gets blown away by a geyser, and of course the geyser is then used later on in the film in the climax as a way to take out one of the dinosaurs. And I'm like, okay, did you really need to give that away so early on? And there's just a lot of stuff where it's just it almost feels like it's storytelling for babies, because it's like, oh, here's this, and then we're gonna use this later, and it's just like in your face about it, and it's not subtle. And so when you have these moments where it goes back to the geyser, or it goes back to the deadly poison berries, it just feels like it's just set up in a way where it's predictable. It doesn't really have the same impact it would if they didn't, hold your hand or have this sort of paint by numbers approach to how certain beats play out throughout the film. And there's a lot of stuff that is pretty incredulous, like the whole climax with the escape pod and how it gets knocked over and it barely gets that much damage despite it falling off a cliff and landing upside down, and it's apparently still in good enough condition to actually fly. I'm like, that's bullshit. And there's a few other things that do make you go like, what, really? um but there's some cool stuff. I do like the scenes involving the dinosaurs and the different types of dinosaurs, um, hunting or stalking the two leads. I like the finale, which kind of reminded me a little bit of the scene in the Lost World with the two Tyrannosaurus Rexes. Here, it's kind of similar to that, but more satisfying to me because Mills gets some pretty awesome moments with this gun, and even the stuff with the geyser. Like, and despite how predictable it was still kind of cool to see that because it's creative and interesting. And you also have some other stuff that I definitely thought was um intriguing. Like I like the different types of tech that Mills has, his weaponry, the rifle, as well as these like balls that are like bombs, but they're like sonic bombs. I thought that was interesting, and that was cool. And I do appreciate the fact that there's a variety of dinosaurs. I would have liked to have seen more of them, even more variety, and I definitely would have liked to have seen more practical effects. So much of the film is CGI, so that's another thing that's a knock against it. It really takes me out of a lot of the scenes with the dinosaurs because the CGI is not really that good. So you have these dinosaurs and they don't really feel like they're there. So then it just doesn't really have the same impact as it might have otherwise. That's why, honestly, I would rather watch the Carnosaur sequels again than this, because even as low budget and as cheap as those films are, the dinosaurs are done practically. They're actually there in the frame. It's not a green screen sort of thing. And that's not really a script issue. So I'm not really going to knock the writers for that. That's a whole other separate thing. But yeah, the screenplay, it's like, it is very paint by numbers. Like, you have an interesting idea of it taking place 65 million years ago on Earth. You have the good concept of the asteroid coming, but you don't introduce it until later, which kind of felt like a waste. because it was not, you only got half as much out of that as you would have if you introduced that even earlier in the film. The stuff with Koa and Mills getting to know each other, the fact that Koa can't speak English. I know why they did that, but it just wasn't really that endearing to me. Um, and they've had a fun finale with dinosaurs and guns and a poisoned spear and a geyser and so on, and Mills and Koa escaping before the asteroid hits, but it doesn't really feel like there's much there. And I can see why a lot of people pointed out the fact that it feels like there's stuff cut out. And there was a lot cut out. Probably a lot of character depth, probably a lot of other moments. And that's why it just feels like a movie that would have been worth a rental back in the 90s or the 2000s, not something that you would rush to a theater to see. And another reason why the film just never really rises above mediocre for me is the lead. Adam Driver, he's not terrible. I'm not going to say that he's awful here as Mills, but he's not that great either. Here's the thing about Adam Driver. I know he's a Marine, but that doesn't necessarily always translate to the big screen, despite the fact that, yeah, he's a tough guy in real life because he was a Marine. Like, you have to be a tough guy to be a Marine. And you would think that might translate on the screen, but it doesn't for me. I just don't really feel that Adam Driver has that charisma to really pull off being that kind of character on film. You don't really need charisma to be a good Marine in reality because it's not acting. So here, it kind of reminds me of Adrian Brody in Predators, that kind of thing, where you have this actor who's more known for dramatic roles or other sort of stuff playing soldier, and it just doesn't really work for me. It doesn't help either that so much of the film he's just panting and out of breath. Like, he's supposed to be this tough, badass, pilot and this strong guy who can protect this girl and fight dinosaurs. And like, there's 3 or 4 different scenes where he's like just let me catch my breath. Yeah, I'm like, that's not really a good look for your badass dinosaur hunter. That's just not a good look for me. I know he's not technically an expert, he's a pilot and whatever, but he clearly has training because he knows how to use that gun very well. So I don't know. It just makes Adam Driver as a lead even less fun or less memorable because he's supposed to be this badass, and like, there are numerous sequences where he's just catching his breath. Like, have you ever seen that with Schwarzenegger, Stallone, or Van Damme, or even Dolph Lundgren in their prime? No. You don't even see that with like Carl Urban, who, by the way, I think he would have been a much better lead. Like, it would have been cool to have seen Carl Urban in another film fighting dinosaurs. Or even Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler did that movie Plane. Like, I'd rather him do this than Plane, which is just a plain, generic action thriller on a plane. Which I don't know if it was actually on a plane, but because I haven't actually seen the movie, but from the trailer, it just looked like a typical generic action thriller. I mean, even the title says it all, Plane. So instead of doing that, why not do 65? or maybe an older actor. Like, it would have been really cool to see Stallone fighting dinosaurs. And of course, in my idealized version of it, it would be rated R because that is something that definitely does hurt this film. I mean, you got a movie dealing with dinosaurs 65 million years ago, and it's PG-13, and there are a lot of times where it just feels like it has no teeth. It's not as sharp as it could be because of the fact that it's PG-13. I would have liked to have seen some gore, would have liked to have seen some blood, would have liked to have seen something visceral. And you don't get that. So, but yeah, Adam Driver, I just don't buy him as the lead. And it's not the fact that it's a really bad performance. It's not. It's there, and I think he does have some decent chemistry with his co-star Ariana Greenblatt as Koa. But I would say Ariana Greenblatt to me showed more personality and had more of a screen presence than Adam Driver in this, which is kind of sad, really. I mean, Adam Driver, he was Kylo Ren, which I don't think he was really that great as Kylo Ren either. And he's been in other stuff and done some good work. And honestly, I think he is an actor that he's better suited for a certain kind of role, not this. He's better suited for a dramatic role or some kind of weird avant-garde kind of film, not as, this super, pilot. Because he's got to be a super pilot of some kind to be able to, fend off all these dinosaurs. And the other performers, I mean, Chloe Coleman as Naveen, like she's in it for like 2 minutes as his wife during a flashback scene that starts the movie on the beach. Nika King as Alia, like I did like her. I thought that she did a good enough job that, like I said, she could have just been the one on the planet to begin with. She could have just been the one. You don't even need Koa. Despite the fact that Ariana Greenblatt did a decent job, but Nika King could have done just as well of a job and wouldn't have spent half the film trying to learn English. And when it comes to other elements in the movie, the cinematography, it's serviceable. Like there are some okay looking shots of the landscapes, but a lot of it's very just dim and dank looking and not really the most vibrant. And I get it, that's not what they're trying to go for, but I'm really just sick and tired of so many of these films just having no color and just being sapped out when it comes to color with some kind of filter or after effects because they're trying to be more realistic. The editing by Jane Tones and Josh Schaefer I thought was kind of a mixed bag. It was kind of all over the place. There were some scenes that were edited in a way where it was really well done and it was effective. Then there were other scenes where it looked like it was edited with the claws of a dinosaur, or they had an actual dinosaur edited with its teeth or its jaws, because it's very uneven. The crash land sequence is one of them, and there's a few other sequences with the dinosaurs and some other stuff that kind of it really did. It felt very choppy, and I think part of it also might be the fact that there was a lot cut out, so there's a lot of scenes that kind of feel very choppy in that regard because they cut a lot of stuff out that really affected the way scenes flowed from one to the next. The music by Chris Bacon, it's just there. I mean, nothing particularly grand or great, just very in the middle. I know the original composer was Danny Elfman, but I guess they didn't like his work enough, so he got replaced by Chris Bacon, who apparently is a protege of his, but they also kept some of Elfman's music. Honestly, I would be curious to hear Elfman's full original score because it had to be really bad in order to be for it to be replaced by such a generic, just run of the mill, just there for atmosphere, just there for mood, not much else kind of score. And I don't think Elfman would be the kind of composer who would deliver something like that. So it could have been bad, but it also could have been actually good. Like there have been a lot of instances where a score is scrapped because somebody in the production or the studio doesn't like the music, it doesn't like the score, but then you hear it and you're like, this is actually good. Like, and then you hear the version of the score that they used and replaced the other score with, and it sounds massively inferior. And that is another element that would have helped this film a lot. Is a more rousing, more memorable, effective score. But yeah, I mean, it's not what I would consider to be that dull of a movie. It's not boring. I mean, it's only like 93 minutes, and that's with the end credits. You take that out, and it's not even barely an hour and a half. So it goes by at a decent enough pace. There are some tense and somewhat thrilling scenes with the dinosaurs. It's an interesting concept. The way they use the tech, I think at times actually is pretty terrific. Um, but yeah, Adam Driver is not the best lead in this kind of film. The tone is kind of inconsistent. There are a lot of conveniences and predictable moments when it comes to the script and the story, and it definitely is lacking more of a bite due to the PG-13 rating. But I would say if you like the trailer and it looks interesting to you, it's worth a watch. It's worth a stream. If you have a theater subscription and you can only pay like $1.50 for a ticket and it's a rainy day, sure, but definitely not the kind of film that you would pay full price to see in the theater, and definitely not the kind of movie that, in all honesty, that you would watch again and again. It's not like it's a new classic of the genre. Give me Carnosaur 2 or 3 any day. Anyway, that's my review of 65, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.